Now that we have our basic general information entered, as well as our starting point for enterprise value, namely our current share price, we can start building to equity value by calculating fully diluted shares outstanding. So as you guys recall, it won't suffice just to have basic shares outstanding. We also need to account for dilution from options, warrants, restricted stock units, any other dilutive securities that may exist out there. So with that said, let's just start with the easy part, and that is basic shares outstanding. So in order to do so, what I start with is just the latest filing. So where we can find this would be from our Form 10Q, and it's always going to be on the cover page. You can always dig up basic shares outstanding from the cover page. It will always be there. And as you guys can recall, whenever there's an instance where we have Class A and Class B shares, you should always include both. Now, in the case of Nike, Class A shares have some special voting rights. They're held by insiders, but for all intents and purposes, just taking the full amount is all you need to get basic shares outstanding. So I've selected this range. I just copied that with Control C. And the way we're going to do this is let's dump this in here, and know what I want to do is I want to add a period here. I want to put that in, that would turn this into millions rather than just the base amount. So this is the number of shares we have outstanding. Now we want to just footnote that this is, we'll just say cover page of 3Q2010Q. So we got that. So that was the easy part. Now where it gets a little more complex is digging up options, warrants, other dilutive securities. So in order to do that, oftentimes in 10Qs, you may not be able to dig up full detail on option data. And I already kind of did the heavy lifting for you guys of digging through here, and I found that the Form 10Q didn't have much of relevance to find these. So oftentimes you're going to have way more detail on these securities in the 10K. So with that said, whenever you're doing a comp for the first time, always check the 10Q first to make sure you're using the most up-to-date data. But most of the time, the full detail will be in the 10K. So in order to do this, rather than reading through the entire 10K to try to dig things up, I just hit Control F. I use the search function in Adobe PDF, and we can search a few key terms. So one that usually turns up good results would be something like restricted stock unit. And let's see if this turns up any gold. And indeed it does. So we can see here, we've got a number of things. So let's go back up to the top here. It usually starts with a section like stock options. We can see here, it kind of gives us some data on how they value the stock options using the Black-Scholes model. We don't care about that here. But a nice starting point is here we can see that here is the balance and the detail of stock options. We can see as of May 31st, 2019, it's saying that there were 91.3 million shares outstanding in stock options, and the weighted average exercise price was 50.59. So let's footnote that, or let's enter that in, and then we footnote it. So one thing I'm going to do actually is, let's say rather than digging up the actual page number here, since sometimes it's going to, where is it? There we go. It would be here it says 141, whereas in the PDF we're actually on page 76. Let's just say page 76. So we'll say PDF page 76. So when we reference this, we can always dig it back up. So of 2019 10K. So I'll take that. Oops, why did that? Here we go. Do that, and then Alt-ES C. So that's comments and notes. That just copies and pastes the comment and note over, so we have that there. So that is our stock options. Now let's take a look through here and see. So we can see that there's also restricted stock and restricted stock units. So as you guys know, this is a weighted average grant date fair value. So this is not a strike price. So this would not go in as a tranche here. You should not consider this a strike price. This is just kind of the fair value at the date it was granted. I think this has some tax implications potentially for the employees, but for our purposes, it doesn't mean anything. Basically, there's no strike price on restricted stock units. Those are just shares that go straight to employees. So what we do know here, and what's the important data point, is that there are 4.4 million shares of restricted stock. So we can enter that here and just type in 4.4. And so we have that. And also, know what, let me copy this same thing. I'll just copy the same note to Alt-ES-C, copy that over. So we have the same note, page 76 of the 2019 10K. And as I look through here, we can see there's nothing else. It starts to get into earnings per share, benefits plan. So there's no other type of dilutive securities for Nike except for these RSUs as well as these options and warrants. But now that we have these data points, we can derive an equity value for Nike. Now we can get a fully diluted share count of about 1.6 billion shares times a share price of 87.79 means Nike's equity value is $140 billion. So we now have that. We're going to turn to balance sheet data and building to enterprise value in the next lesson.